Back at it again with another video. This time we got 6 most disturbing camping encounters caught on camera. Like I always say, don't go camping alone. Why would you do it? I mean, you've seen from the other videos how bad it is. Let's not do it. Brought to you by Nightmare Feelings. Check out Nightmare Feelings.
Rob Call Nature is a YouTube channel known for immersive, scenic outdoor adventures that often place its host in remote, isolated environments. Whether he's stealth camping in unusual locations or hiking through rugged terrain, his videos blend bushcraft, solitude, and an appreciation for nature with the unpredictability that comes from venturing off the beaten path. But in this video, uploaded on March 22nd, 2025, things take an unsettling turn that leaves him questioning not just the decision to camp alone, but whether he was truly alone at all. Rob explaining how he discovered the site. While browsing Google Earth for potential camping spots, he came across a small point of interest in the middle of a Finnish forest, labeled simply as a Viking tomb. With only one photo available and no detailed information, curiosity got the better of him. He made plans to find the tomb, spend the night there, and document the experience. He parks his car on a
tomb. You're gonna spend the night in a tomb.
Logging road, the closest access point to the tomb, and notices something immediately off.
Who's he waving at?
That's weird. Why would they do that? That really bothered me.
Do what?
Why would they take pictures of my car?
Why didn't you show videos?
So we have to head due west. When I unpacked my car, there drove a car by. They slowed down pretty much when they saw me. And just now, before I left the road into the woods, they made another round and took a picture of my license plate.
That's it. It's off.
Maybe
You're
it
on
was
private
the landowner. Maybe they thought I was a poacher.
A car drives by slowly, seemingly examining him. Moments later, it circles back and, disturbingly, the driver appears to take a photo of his license plate. Unsettled, Rob shrugs it off, assuming it could have been the landowner or someone suspicious.
If you're on someone's land, why are you doing it, dude?
About a stranger heading into the forest. But this would prove to be the first sign that someone was paying close attention to him. With his gear in hand, he treks into the forest. Navigating through dense underbrush and across a small valley, he gets lost multiple times and begins to walk in circles. At one point, he encounters a deer darting off into the trees. Eventually, he stumbles upon the tomb.
Well, I think I can see it. Cool.
Listen to that.
Well, it's plundered, all right. Well, no trophies for me. I wonder how many hundreds of years ago they plundered this place. They could have left a sword for me, or two.
A massive stone mound covered in large boulders, long since looted, but still imposing. Surrounded by forest and near a lake, it's the kind of place steeped in mystery. Rob speculates that Vikings may have once used this location for trading or even battle, given its proximity to the Baltic Sea via connecting waterways. With the sun setting and temperatures dropping, he sets up camp directly next to the tomb, choosing to hammock camp under a tarp. The forecast predicts temperatures to fall to -4 degrees Celsius, but he believes he's prepared. He sets up a foam pad under his hammock, an old wool blanket overhead, and layers of warm clothing, complete with hand warmers. A thermometer shows the outside temperature dipping below -5 degrees Celsius, while inside his setup, it remains just above freezing. The vibe is serene for a while. He settles in for the night with a cold meal and some iced coffee.
Is that
He watches a
Crustable?
movie on his phone under the tarp, remarking that it's not every day you get to have movie night next to a Viking tomb. But the sense of peace doesn't last long. By 11 p.m., he's been lying in his hammock for nearly 4 hours, and the cold is starting to seep in. Despite multiple layers and heating packs, he's shivering uncontrollably.
Why doesn't he
The
have a
wind
fire?
cuts through his shelter, and his hands are freezing. Though not in immediate danger of hypothermia, he makes the difficult decision to end the trip early. He packs up his gear and begins his hike out of the forest. As he navigates his way back to the logging road, he begins to feel a creeping discomfort. It's more than the cold, it's a feeling of being watched. When he finally reaches the road and his car, he finds something disturbing.
I found her. My princess in shiny armor. Well, someone has been interested in my car. I knew there was something off. These are not my footprints. The left one is mine, and the right one is the
A little bigger.
visitor in the night. When we headed out, someone took a picture of my car. Well, maybe they're as curious as I am. Well, that's the... let's just get out of here.
Yeah.
On the passenger side of the vehicle, where he never stepped, are clear, fresh prints. Someone had been there, and they weren't his. He recalls how earlier someone had driven by, taken a photo of his car, and now he's certain that they must have returned while he was deep in the woods. Whether they were merely curious or had more intentions, Rob doesn't know. But what's clear is that someone approached his vehicle in the middle of the night. He describes the experience as one of the most chilling of his life. He's used to the solitude of camping alone in the wilderness, but this was different. The thought that someone was silently circling his camp or inspecting his car in the dark created a level of fear that had nothing to do with ghosts or old Viking spirits. It was human, and it was unsettling. What did you make of this encounter? Let me know. In a short but deeply unsettling clip originally posted to TikTok by user Lauren Burlex, a hiker in the UK captured a moment that sent shivers down the spines of many viewers. The video, which has since gained viral attention, shows the hiker reaching the top of a remote hill during what appears to be a solo camping trip. As the camera pans across the landscape, a peculiar gathering comes into view on the opposite side of the hill. In the clearing below, a group of adults dressed entirely in white stand in a perfect circle, with two normally dressed children positioned in the center. The entire scene
Okay.
is eerily quiet and unusually choreographed,
And
prompting
weird
the
as
hiker
fuck.
to start recording and share the clip with the internet. The footage is brief, lasting only a few seconds, but the atmosphere it conveys is nothing short of chilling. Many identified the group as modern-day druids, practitioners of contemporary Celtic spirituality known for holding nature-based rituals and ceremonies. According to these explanations, the gathering was likely a peaceful, spiritual event that had nothing to do with anything sinister. Still, not everyone was convinced. The visual alone, a stark white circle of robed figures surrounding children, struck many viewers as deeply unsettling, regardless of the group's intentions. While it may have been benign in nature, the strange scene unfolding in such a remote location added a layer of tension that made it hard to shake off.
That's weird.
Harmless or not, the moment caught by Lauren Burl remains one of the most visually eerie camping encounters caught on camera, proving that sometimes the most unsettling sights don't need explanation. They speak for themselves. What did you make of this footage? Let me know.
Colt.
On November 11th, 2022, the YouTube channel Wizard in the Wild shared one of their most harrowing and emotional experiences in this footage. The channel, hosted by Graham and Ellie, usually features peaceful van life content with their two dogs, Luna and Maya. as they explored the beauty of nature and enjoyed the freedom of wild camping across the UK. But on this particular night, while stopping at what appeared to be a quiet and well-reviewed site, an incident happened that would shake their sense of security and leave lasting emotional trauma. The couple had been traveling through Scotland and the Isle of Arran, but with urgent matters at home, they decided to cut the trip short and make their way south. After a long drive, they found a small, peaceful-looking motorhome stop in Altrincham, near Greater Manchester. The site had good reviews, was tucked away among trees, and was conveniently located near the Pennine Way for dog walks. Although they didn't usually like to arrive at a stop after dark, bad weather and traffic left them with no other option. Upon arrival, they took their dogs for a walk, made some dinner, and settled in for the night. Around 1:08 a.m., Ellie was woken by thumping bass from a loud car stereo. The music stopped abruptly, and moments later, an earth-shattering bang rocked the camper van, jolting both of them awake.
Just can't believe it. We've just been woken up with a loud bang, and you dropped something on the floor there. Was that glass? 2 bricks. And someone's just smashed Merlin's windows while we were sleeping. So no, we don't recommend this as a place to stop.
What a dick.
Smashed the windscreen, but Graham's hoping he can drive with that. But here's us in the middle of nowhere with a broken window and a cracked windscreen.
Oh, that pissed me off.
200 miles from home. So, pretty awful really.
Yeah.
Just don't know what to do. I'm still in
Just
shock.
go home. Just try to drive.
Just
What a bunch of assholes.
Really loud boom, 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 boom music, because we think it was just boy racers. And suddenly the music went quiet and it was just loud bang, and Graham reckons there was 2 of them. So the bricks hit the van at the same time, and it's pouring with rain. I don't know how we're going to get home. Anyway, I've got to try and sort this out now.
Graham initially thought it might have been a tree branch falling, until he remembered that he had deliberately parked away from trees. When he stepped outside, the truth became clear. 2 large house bricks were lying on the ground, and the passenger side window had been completely shattered. Their camper van, Merlin, had been deliberately attacked. Inspecting further, Graham found that the front windscreen was cracked in 4 places, the side window was smashed in, and shards of glass were scattered throughout the interior. It was raining heavily, and water began pouring into the van through the broken windows, soaking the floor, seats, and anything nearby. The violent nature of the attack was clear, and the emotional toll was immediate. Despite the shock, they began documenting the aftermath on camera, both for evidence and to share their experience honestly with their viewers. Another nearby camper, who had been awakened by the noise, rushed over to help.
So the people in this camper van, we don't even know their name, bless them, were absolutely lovely. They're moving on too. They had some black bags and some Gorilla Tape. So we've, Graham's taped up the windows. I'm just hoping that it holds till we get home. So there we go. Just gonna have to go home really steady. Hope for the best. Alright.
No, not really, but what can you do?
I just want to get out of here now. We'll probably stop up the road and make a cup of tea or something, but for now we just want to go. So upset.
Can't blame them.
I know, I'm glad that we're all okay, and that's the main thing. But what a horrible thing to do. I wouldn't recommend this place as an offer.
Strangers kindly offered black bags and Gorilla Tape so Graham could attempt a temporary repair to the shattered window, allowing them to drive home. With over 200 miles still to go, Graham cautiously drove the damaged van, keeping speeds under 45 miles per hour to prevent the makeshift repair from blowing out. The couple stopped at nearly every motorway
So thanks to Jake, we've managed to make a temporary repair. Thanks Jake, you're a legend mate. So we've made our temporary repair. Well, this is the second temporary repair. I've got just enough room there to see my rear view mirror, so we should be safe to go. We won't be going very fast though.
Even though the road was relatively quiet, the constant stress of visibility issues, slow speeds, and the lingering shock of what had happened made the journey grueling. As they made their way home, the emotional impact deepened. Ellie, who lives with PTSD, described Merlin as her safe space, a mobile sanctuary that had allowed her to reconnect with the world. To have it violated so violently left her shaken to the core. She explained how wild camping had brought peace and mental healing, allowing her to reclaim a part of life she thought was lost. Now, all of that felt compromised. In the days that followed, they reflected on everything. Should they continue wild camping? Should they switch to official campsites? Should they sell Merlin altogether? The attack, which they believe was a random act of vandalism by local youths, left not only physical damage to the van, but psychological damage to them both. Ellie described how even seeing strangers near the van now triggers anxiety. They no longer felt confident parking in areas that once brought them comfort and joy. They both expressed frustration and helplessness. The stop had been carefully chosen through a trusted app, the reviews were positive, and there were no warning signs of danger. The only regret was arriving after dark, which prevented them from seeing if there were any signs of trouble. But ultimately, they did nothing wrong. The attackers were to blame. The couple has since repaired the windscreen and side window. Insurance has been helpful, and their van is safe to drive again, but emotionally, they're far from healed. They've contemplated changing how they use the van, perhaps only using it for day trips or sticking to certified sites, but even that doesn't feel quite right. Ellie confessed that she felt robbed of something incredibly precious, the joy of being deep in nature, retreating into a warm, safe space afterward, had been stripped away in an instant. Graham echoed those thoughts, recalling how jumpy and suspicious he's become. Wary even when taking the dogs to the park or passing strangers in public. The couple was honest in saying they haven't decided what to do next. Their story wasn't meant to discourage others from enjoying van life or wild camping, but rather to show that these incidents, while rare, are real, and that it's okay to talk about the emotional aftermath when something goes wrong. This encounter changed them, and perhaps their entire approach to van life, forever. Kev Goes is a YouTube creator who shares his passion for outdoor adventure through hiking, fishing, and camping, often immersing himself deep in the wilderness to reconnect with nature and push his comfort zone. Over time, he's become familiar with solo expeditions, tackling everything from rugged terrain to unpredictable weather. But in one particular video, Kev set out to complete a new challenge, an overnight stay alone in the forest under a simple tarp shelter, which, while peaceful at first, turned into something far more unsettling. The footage shows Kev's solo tarp camping trip in a remote section of forest he accessed by bike. Carrying only the essentials, he arrived at a mossy clearing, ideal for laying down his tarp between two trees. The sun was still up as he secured his shelter and prepared his site for the night ahead. Though the forest was dense and isolated, it had a calming stillness to it. The campsite was situated just off an ATV trail, and while it was on Crown land, meaning legally accessible, he hadn't expected much, if any, human activity nearby. As the temperature dropped, Kev decided against making coffee so late, knowing it might interfere with his sleep, and instead focused on cooking a simple stir-fry meal while the last light of day faded from the sky. Not far in the distance, the sound of ATV engines broke the silence briefly.
There are some ATVers not too far away. I don't know if you can hear them or not, but they just started and they started whooping it up a little bit. It's Crown land here, so there's not much I can do about it. I chose kind of an ATV trail. I just didn't expect them to be out in the evening, so hopefully it won't last too long, and hopefully it's gonna deter any bears, because bears are a real thing. It's April right now, and we've had a very warm springtime here in Canada, in Manitoba where I am, and so the bears, most likely some of them were out earlier. And if there's no food for them to find, they'll start looking for human sources. I thought about it while I'm out here. I just cooked with onions and garlic and all that stuff. So, you know, it's probably a tantalizing smell for a bear. It is for me anyway.
It seemed a few riders were still out enjoying the trails, their engines and laughter echoing faintly through the trees. Kev took it in stride, assuming the presence of others might help deter any nearby wildlife from venturing too close. Once dinner was finished, he readied his bedding and settled into his sleeping bag under the tarp. The forest around him slowly quieted, and soon the only sounds were the distant rustling of leaves and the occasional creak of tree trunks shifting in the breeze. The darkness wrapped around the tarp like a heavy curtain, and Kev let his thoughts wander in the stillness. For someone used to nature's rhythms, this was supposed to be peaceful. But the deeper the silence grew, the more amplified every small sound became. At first, it was easy to chalk up the unfamiliar creaks and rustles to trees shifting, or distant wildlife. But over time, the sense of isolation began to morph into something more alert, almost anxious. The forest remained calm until well past midnight, when suddenly the atmosphere shifted. Kev was jolted awake around 12:30 a.m. by a high-pitched, piercing scream that slightly
Oh, hell no.
didn't resemble the cries of
Sounds
any
like a
animal he
hyena.
recognized. It wasn't the bark of a fox or the call of an owl. It was longer, more anguished, and deeply unnatural. Frozen in place, he tried to orient himself in the dark, to his mind racing to identify the sound. The forest, once so still, had taken on a menacing presence. Each time the scream rang out, it seemed to shift position, never in the same spot twice. Kev could hear movement now, subtle, but deliberate. He reached for his camera to record what he could, fumbling with it in the dark, his fingers clumsy with adrenaline. The device finally came to life, capturing only a fraction of the strange noise that had shattered his sense of safety. The screams continued sporadically for what felt like an eternity before abruptly stopping. Once the noises ceased, the silence returned, but it no longer brought comfort. Instead, it felt oppressive, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Kev remained awake, clutching his nearby gear, alert to every new sound. Sleep was impossible after what he had just heard. The woods around him no longer felt like a place of peace or adventure. They had become unfamiliar, hostile. When dawn finally broke, the chirping of birds and a rustling of squirrels marked the return of normalcy. Sunlight filtered through the trees, and the forest once again looked harmless, but the memory of what had occurred just hours before lingered. Kev
I can't believe he made it the whole night. That was freaky.
wasted no time packing up. The light of day hadn't erased the intensity of the night. Though nothing had approached his tarp directly, something had definitely been nearby. Something that didn't want to be seen. For someone as experienced as Kev, it's rare to encounter something that truly unsettles the soul. What did you think of this encounter? Like always,
Creepy.
let me know. While most people wake up to the quiet hum of a kettle and the promise of a hot cup of coffee, Dylan Panos, a guide and seasoned outdoorsman, awoke to something very different during a camping trip in South Africa's Sabi Sands Game Reserve. In what he thought would be a peaceful morning in the bush, he found himself at the center of a surreal and dangerous standoff. Dylan, a well-known wildlife expert familiar with the rhythms of the African bush, had woken up craving nothing more than his usual cup of coffee. But as he stepped into his small kitchen setup, he was greeted by the deep growl of a lion.
Wow. Oh, jeez. Freak that. Yeah. Why would you go closer to it? The chicken wire gonna save you?
Caught between his desire for caffeine and the presence of one of nature's most formidable predators, Dylan joked to the camera about his predicament. Despite his calm demeanor, the gravity of the situation was obvious. He was effectively trapped. Not only was the male lion stationed outside his kitchen, but a lioness had also positioned herself along the wall of the camp.
We've got a honeymoon couple in camp. And the lioness, she's lying right here by the wall. And we can't get even to make our coffee this morning. Very rude behavior.
Why, dude? Why?
The lions weren't simply passing through. The male appeared to be guarding the lioness, while she, uninterested in his attention, lay sprawled against the outer barrier of Dylan's tented kitchen area. He could hear the low vibrations of the lion's roars. At one point, Dylan questioned whether the thin chicken wire fencing surrounding his camp offered any real protection at all.
No.
With two apex predators just feet away, even his vast experience in the wild didn't remove the underlying vulnerability of the moment. What should have been a quiet, relaxing morning had turned into a high-stakes standoff between humans and wildlife. For several tense minutes, Dylan waited it out, documenting the entire experience. The male lion remained alert and close, pacing and occasionally locking eyes with Dylan through the thin window panel. The lioness, less interested in the scene, stayed resting near the wall, offering no indication that she would be moving anytime soon. Eventually, however, the lions grew restless and slowly wandered off into the bush, allowing Dylan and the other campers to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The encounter had passed without incident, but not without leaving a lasting impression. While the encounter was never aggressive, it was a stark reminder of how unpredictable life can be in the African wilderness. Even the simplest desires, a warm drink, a quiet morning, can be completely derailed when you're living amongst creatures that command both respect
Forget
and distance. For Dylan, it was just another day in the wild, though one that ended up being a bit more caffeinated later than expected. But for those watching, it offered a glimpse into a world where the boundaries between man and nature are razor thin, and where even the most routine moments can turn into unforgettable encounters. On December 19th, 2021, the host of the YouTube channel Hike Slam Phil went on what was intended to be a peaceful solo hike and overnight camp on a section of the Appalachian Trail in Virginia. The video starts out lighthearted and scenic, but quickly transforms into something far darker. Phil begins the video on the day before Thanksgiving, hiking into the woods to enjoy some solitude and nature before the holiday. The weather is cold but clear, and the Appalachian Trail is familiar territory for him. His plan is simple: hike to a shelter, set up camp, make a fire, and enjoy the night. The hike starts off smoothly, with beautiful riverside views, waterfalls, and reflections off still water. But not long into the trek, things begin to feel off. Along the trail, Phil encounters trash strewn across the ground.
So some Bud Light cans,
Seen this before.
plastic bat, some writing on some of this garbage. This one, Hangman is coming down from the gallows. Song lyrics. Other weird things. Oh, hopefully I don't get murdered out here. That would totally ruin my day. Well, let's keep going.
Beer cans, plastic, and what appears to be handwritten messages scribbled on discarded packaging. One item is especially chilling. It features the lyrics, "Hangman is coming down from the gallows," a reference that could be interpreted as ominous or threatening. At first, he brushes it off as a weird coincidence, maybe the work of someone eccentric. But then, as he continues further into the woods, he finds a dead duck lying next to a long, rambling note.
The weirdness continues. What the hell? And there's a dead duck here. A very long note. And it looks like it was just put here because it's not wet. That duck is fairly recently killed. Alright. Kind of creepy.
Time to go.
This is when Phil's sense of unease really begins to take hold. He hears a fire crackling in the distance and realizes someone is camping just off the trail. He sees the faint outline of a person sitting on a rock near the river, close to a tarp and campfire. It's clear someone is living or camping in the area, and possibly the person responsible for the bizarre messages. Spooked, Phil hurries past, deciding to push on toward the nearby shelter rather than set up camp near what now feels like a highly suspicious situation.
Yeah, that's weird.
As he hikes, he encounters two women on the trail who had just passed the same area. They too had noticed the man and expressed concern about his behavior and strange presence. They were so uneasy that they asked Phil to escort them past the man's campsite for safety. He agrees, and after walking them back to their vehicle, he drives to a different access point on the trail to find a safer place to camp. Phil eventually finds his way to John's Hollow Shelter, which feels far more secluded and peaceful. There's no one else around, and it's removed from the Forest Service road where he parked his truck. He explores the area and sets up his camp behind the shelter, opting to use his own tent rather than sleep inside the shelter due to concerns about rodents. The night is cold but clear. After a simple meal of ramen and a small dessert, he settles in by the fire with a bit of whiskey, feeling much more at ease than earlier in the day. But then, the unease returns. While reading through the shelter's logbook, a common trail tradition where hikers record their thoughts and experiences, Phil comes across something that makes his blood run cold.
Same
Holy
writing.
crap. Wait a second. Well, I'm adjust the camera here. This writing looks almost exactly like the writing that was on that garbage a couple of miles from here. Let's see if this makes any sense. Once I came across that guy's writing, it was so weird. It was like, I felt like I was, I don't know, the plot continues or something. You open it up and it's like, that writing looks familiar. Oh my gosh, the same writing as that guy that's 3 miles away that I hiked this far away to get away from the dude. And now, yeah, man, I guess he was just here a few days ago. Ranting, it's like music lyrics and political stuff and, you know, talking about people leaving trash and just weird rants and Bible quotes, and it's just like all over the place.
A long, rambling entry filled with nonsensical religious and political rants, music lyrics, and cryptic references to jail time and rope left in the woods. It's eerily similar to the handwriting and tone of the notes he saw on the garbage and next to the dead duck earlier that day. Now he's certain the man he fled from had been at this shelter just days before. As if that weren't disturbing enough, Phil later discovers another handwritten message at the shelter, this time scrawled on a mouse-hanging device often used to suspend food out of reach. It reads, "Watch out for Yeet Mouse. The dead do walk and talk." The writing matches the previous
Weirdo.
notes.
Mental
The
health.
realization hits hard. Whoever this man is, he's been leaving messages all along the trail and possibly moving between campsites. Feeling exposed and uneasy, Phil retreats into his tent, keeping his shoes on and his gear close just in case. He tries to sleep, but every crack and crunch outside sends his anxiety spiraling. The silence is oppressive, and the solitude that once felt peaceful now feels dangerous. Hours pass in a haze of half-sleep and alertness, until finally, in the middle of the night, he hears someone or something down by the shelter. He can no longer deny it. There is someone nearby.
I'm out on the trail. It's the middle of the night. I was down in my tent, not asleep, kind of just like lying there staring at the tent walls, listening to all the sounds, and then I heard somebody down by the shelter. So at first I had to convince myself it wasn't what I thought I heard, but it definitely was somebody down there. So I didn't even wait to see or go down to see who it was, see if it was like a bunch of teenage girls or something. I don't know. I was just like, I am getting out of here. So I packed up all my stuff, and I packed it up very quickly. I don't think I left anything behind, and I just walked past. As I walked past, I did look. It did look like a single guy hanging out in the shelter. He had a headlamp on. All I could really see was the light from the headlamp, so I could have been wrong.
Without hesitation, Phil packs up his gear in a panic and bolts into the night. He avoids making noise, walking past the shelter as quietly as possible. As he passes, he sees a figure, just one, sitting near the shelter with a headlamp on. Phil doesn't stop to confirm or confront. He simply walks away, checking behind him repeatedly to make sure he isn't being followed. The headlamp remains in place, not moving, but the sense of dread is enough to keep him moving until he reaches his truck. Phil may never know the full story behind the man on the trail, but this experience left a lasting impression.
Yeah.
With this final encounter, I'll take your leave. You know what to do, but if you don't, let me remind you again to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment.
Tell me what you think. Especially the last one. Would you leave like he did, or would you confront him? I don't know. Like, subscribe.